Hello, Recapped Mystery here. Today, I'm going to explain the horror thriller film called 30 Days of Night. Watch out and take care. The film begins with a filthy-looking man clothed in a fuzzy coat peering at a ship anchored along the shore. Winter has arrived in Barrow, Alaska. Everyone in town is prepared for the impending polar night, a month-long period during which the sun does not rise. It's the last day before 30 days of total darkness begin. Eben Ollison and Billy Kitka, the sheriffs of Barrow, are inspecting a pile of burned satellite phones in the snow. As a result, the village has no way of communicating with the outside world. The majority of the population is fleeing to avoid the 30 days of isolation, while some are prepared for it. Someone gruesomely stabs all the dogs to death at a nearby dog kennel. Eben is informed of the problem and agrees to investigate. Stella, Eben's wife, works for the Alaska Fire Department. She's in town for the day but hasn't told Eben because they don't get along. However, on her way home, she is involved in an accident and phones Eben for assistance. Eben, on the other hand, responds that he is too busy and sends Billy instead. As Eben investigates the dead dogs at the kennel, he discovers that they have been brutally stabbed and tortured. He then tells the owner, John Riss, that the guilty will be found. Meanwhile, Billy rushes Stella to the airport, but the flight has already taken off, and the airport is closed. She is now confined to town for the next 30 days as well. Eben visits the police station, where he sees his younger brother Jake Ollison and his grandmother, Helen Munson, who also works there. She notifies him of the Utilator's vandalism problem. When Eben arrives in Utilator, he runs into his friends Carter and Wilson. He discovers that Wilson's helicopter has been wrecked. Eben quickly realizes that someone is attempting to cut off all communication with the outside world. Gus, the town's electricity manager, is working at his station when he hears noises outside. As he steps outside with his torch to investigate, he is surrounded by many mystery people. He tries to flee but is attacked. Strangers slowly kill him by sucking his blood. The strangers are then revealed to be vampires who intend to feast on Barrow for the next 30 days. The man from the beginning of the film is in a diner, ordering raw meat and alcohol. When the waitress refuses his requests, he attempts to assault her. Eben and Stella are also present. As Eben tries to stop the man, he becomes increasingly violent, so he arrests him. Eben and Stella then transport the man to the station and imprison him. 3 teenage refinery workers are also walking home after work. A vampire unexpectedly draws one of them into a dark alley on their way home. The other two are unaware of what has occurred. After a few seconds, their friend's bleeding body is tossed in front of them. The girl flees for her life as the stunned man looks at his friend's body. We can see the vampires behind him as he walks. Back at the station, Eben is attempting to question the weird man, but he refuses to respond. Suddenly, all of the electronics in the station cease to function. Eben tries to call Gus, but the phone also does not function. The odd man in the cell warns Eben to hide because they are on their way. Eben, on the other hand, dismisses him. Following that, the town's power goes out. Eben goes to Gus's office to inquire about the power. When he arrives, he discovers a blood trail on the snow outside. He then follows the trail till he comes to Gus's severed head. He quickly returns to the citizens of the village and urges them to stay inside their homes. John and his wife Allie are cooking supper when a vampire bursts through the kitchen's glass window. The vampire then grabs Allie and flees. John attempts to save his wife but is harmed in the process. Finally, the vampire snatches her away. The man assaults Jake at the station. Eben arrives just in time and shoots his arm. Eben assumes the man knows something about Gus's murderer, but the stranger remains silent. Following that, Eben and Stella went out to find the murderers. They got out of their automobile when they discover something strange in the road. Stella notices something through her binoculars and instructs Eben to enter the automobile. As they drive away, a vampire pursues them and climbs on top of their car. Eben shoots the vampire, but it has no effect on him. Stella tries to get him off the truck and they flee. They then receive a call from the station. Helen pleads for help over the phone. They arrive at the station to see blood all over the place. Jake and Helen have vanished, but the stranger remains in the cell. When questioned what occurred, He responds that they don't want him and requests that Eben murder him. A few folks assemble at the diner and debate how vampires do not die when they are shot. They also feed on blood. It is revealed. Then we glimpse vampires' faces for the first time. Their leader's name is Marlowe. He speaks in a strange tongue and commands everyone to be killed. Following orders, the vampires begin killing anybody who is in their way. Eben and Stella run back to the diner from earlier in the day to investigate. Jake and the other survivors are also present. Helen, on the other hand, was killed by one of them. Eben leads everyone to the attic of a nearby house, while the others are hiding. He and Stella go in search of weapons. However, the vampires assault them once more. They try to drag Stella out by flipping Eben's automobile. A bearded man named Brower rushes to their help and strikes the vampires with his bulldozer just before the vampires are about to kill Stella. Eben and Stella manage to sneak inside Brower's car and drive away. They return to the house and join the others in the attic. They hear screams of people being murdered outside but refuse to go. Eben suggests they go to the store after a few days to grab something to eat. They intend to stay in the attic for a while before moving to the utility when the opportunity arises. Meanwhile, Marlowe approaches the stranger in the jail and expresses gratitude for completing the task. He then snaps his head off and murders him. Back in the attic, they make the decision to sleep in shifts, limit their food, and plan their next move later. They remain hidden in the attic for 6 days. On the 7th day, they notice a girl screaming for aid outside. Jake's childhood best buddy is the girl. When Eben notices the vampires on top of the roofs, he realizes it is a trap. Still, he goes outside to save her, only to see her suffering and final death at the hands of the vampires. Someone yells his name as he prepares to return, and he discovers John hidden in a corner. Eben tries to assist John, but he instead assaults him. John became a vampire after his blood became contaminated while attempting to save his wife. Eben is bitten by John. Knowing there is no other way to save John, Eben cuts off his head with an axe. Eben then returns to the attic and falls asleep from tiredness. Wilson's father, who suffers from dementia, attempts to flee in search of his deceased wife. Wilson and Stella console him, but the old guy flees through a window. When Wilson finds out, he rushes outside to look for him. Ignoring Stella's pleas to stay inside, Eben awakens from the hubbub. A vampire enters the residence unexpectedly, and Eben and Stella flee. Wilson shouts distract the vampire as he approaches them. Wilson is discovered outside the home by the vampire, who eventually kills him. This provides an opportunity for Eben and Stella to return to the attic. In the attic, 18 days pass. They have run out of food, and everyone's will to survive is fading. They plan to make a dash for the store during the next hailstorm. Fortunately, a snowstorm hit on the 20th day. They take their time approaching the store. When they arrive, they gather food and supplies. They then notice a young girl slurping blood from a dead body. Carter is attacked by the small girl. Brower, Stella, and Eben pull her away from him, and Jake severs the little girl's head. When they are preparing to leave, the storm has already ended. They are now stranded in the store. They decide to go to the police station's utility room, where they will be safe. Stella claims that because vampires cannot function in sunshine, they have attacked during the Arctic night. Jake is reminded of a UV lamp his grandma used to grow plants. While others flee to the utility, Eben chooses to rush to his grandmother's house to confuse the vampires and use the UV light to kill them. He then screams and runs out with an axe. When the vampires hear his screams, they rush after him. Others rush to the police station and take refuge in the utility room. Eben starts a generator in his grandmother's house. He then uses the UV light to prepare for the vampires. The vampires have surrounded the house. Marlowe instructs his vampire girlfriend Iris to murder Eben. However, when Iris breaks through the window inside the house, Eben focuses the UV beam on her face, completely scorching it. Eben immediately realizes the vampires are about to cut off the generator. He escapes through the rear door. All of the vampires are hunting him, but Marlowe stays with a distraught Iris. He then murders her in order to relieve her anguish. All vampires are hunting him, but Marlowe stays with Iris. Marlowe kills Iris after witnessing her battle to stay alive. Brower then informs Eben that it is now his turn to distract them. He commandeers a bulldozer and fights the vampires pursuing Eben. After a brief battle, he drives the bulldozer into a structure and forces all of the vampires inside. He then sets himself on fire in an explosion. Fortunately, Eben makes it to the police station unharmed. He discovers that Carter was bitten by a vampire and is transforming into one. With no other options, Carter advises Eben murder him. They both enter a room where Eben severs his head. Only 5 of them remain, but survival appears to be conceivable. It is the 27th day of the year. They have enough food to last for a few days till the sun rises again. Suddenly, they observe someone from the house across the street flashing lights at them. Eben believes someone is stuck there. He and Stella set out to rescue them. They are taken aback to find Billy there. Billy murdered his 2 daughters and wife when he had no hope left. His gun stopped working just as he was going to take his life. After chastising Billy for failing to save his family, they take him to their hideout, only to discover that everyone else has gone missing. Assuming they went to the utility, the trio follows them. Stella spots a little girl running about in the snow. About halfway there, a vampire is approaching her from behind. Despite Eben's advice to ignore the little child, Stella can't help herself and runs to help. The vampire then pursues them. Eben instructs Stella and Billy to flee with the little girl while he distracts the vampire. All 3 of them flee in different directions. Eben makes it to the utility but discovers Stella and Billy are missing. Billy eventually makes it to the utility, but a vampire also enters. He goes for Billy and bites him in the neck. After a long fight, the 2 men successfully kill the vampire by pushing him into the meat grinder, but Billy's hand is ripped off in the process. When Eben realizes Billy has been bitten, he reluctantly hacks off his friend's head with an axe. It is currently the last night of the 30th day. If they can make it through the night, they will be released the next day. Other members of the group begin to celebrate, as Eben observes Marlowe and his fellow vampires gathering through a window. Marlowe informs his other vampires that the only reason they've survived this long is that they don't leave any proof of their labor behind. He then orders that the entire town be burned to the ground. Just when Eben believes his wife is dead, she speaks with him by walkie-talkie and tells him she is hiding under a car in the snow. Eben pledges to take her to see the sunrise together. He spots the car, but the vampires have already destroyed all of the town's oil pipes. The oil is steadily filling the streets and making its way towards Stella and the little girl's automobile. Eben realizes there is no saving her now if she flees. They would kill her if she stays. She will burn. The vampires start the fire, and it slowly consumes the entire town. With no other options, he extracts some of Billy's blood with a syringe and injects it into himself. He is well aware that this will convert him into a vampire. His pals notice him becoming into one. He is now a danger to the rest of the group, so they decide to kill him. However, his brother Jake intervenes. Eben then bids his brother farewell and sets out to battle Marlowe. Eben finally kills Marlowe by pushing his hand through Marlowe's head after a long fight. When the other vampires learn their leader is dead, they flee. When the light comes up, everyone comes out. Stella and Eben share a sunrise viewing experience. They exchange one final kiss. When the sun's rays fall into Eben's body, he begins to burn and eventually dies in Stella's arms. Please subscribe to assist the channel, turn on notification and leave a like. Thank you for taking the time to watch. See you again soon.